She walked in with a toddler on her hip, and he had my Dimple. Same curls, same eyes, same worry stare I'd seen in my own baby photos. Even my best man stopped breathing, because we all saw it. The kid looked just like me, but I hadn't seen her in years. And my fiancé was about to walk down the aisle. My name's Nathan, and this is the story of how my ex crashed my wedding, with a secret I couldn't ignore. I was standing at the altar, minutes away from marrying Claire, the woman who helped me believe in love again after Isabel shattered me. But in that moment, watching my ex stroll into my wedding, holding a child who looked like my reflection in miniature, I knew something had just detonated. Isabel and I had history. The messy, beautiful, painful kind. She was fire to my structure, chaos to my calm. We were wild for each other, until one day, she packed up and left. Said she needed space. Said she didn't know who she was anymore. I didn't chase her. That was my first heartbreak. Claire was the opposite. Thoughtful. Steady. The kind of woman who didn't just love you loudly, she loved you well. The kind who sat with you in silence on hard days and didn't try to fix you, just made space for you to breathe. She saved me in a way Isabel never could. So when I proposed, it felt like redemption. Like I'd made it through the fire and come out stronger. That's why what happened next felt like the universe hitting rewind on everything I thought I'd escaped. Jacob reached for my arm. "She's got a kid, man," he whispered. "He looks like." "I know," I said. I didn't wait. I stepped off the altar, walked past the shocked guests, past the floral arch, past the stunned quartet still playing like their instruments could drown out reality. Claire hadn't come down the aisle yet. Thank God. I met Isabel in the church foyer. She smiled wider. "Hey, Nate." I glanced at the boy. He looked up at me. Same eyes. Same wary look I wore in every childhood photo. "His name's Liam," she said. "And yeah, I think you know why I'm here." I didn't speak. Couldn't. My hands were cold. My heart felt like it had fallen down a flight of stairs. Isabel shifted her weight, adjusting Liam on her hip. "He deserves to know who his father is." She said it like a fact, like we were exchanging holiday plans, not torching the happiest day of my life. My voice came out flat. "You waited until my wedding?" She shrugged. "You didn't exactly leave a forwarding address." The door behind me opened. I knew before I turned around who it was. Claire. She stood there in her wedding dress, veil pushed back, bouquet forgotten. Her eyes flicked from me to Isabel, to the boy. She didn't speak, didn't need to. Everything shattered in that silence. Then she said 6 words that broke me more than any scream ever could. "Tell me she's lying, Nathan." And the truth? I didn't know if she was. Not yet. But something deep in my bones whispered, she wasn't. And just like that, the wedding was over, before it ever began. I don't remember walking out of that church. I just remember the sound. Not gasps. Not whispers. Silence. The kind that settles like fog when something sacred breaks. Claire didn't follow me. Jacob did. He caught up outside, jacket off, tie undone, like even his clothes couldn't make sense of what just happened. He didn't say anything right away. Just stood next to me while I stared at the gravel parking lot like it held answers. "She really did it," he said finally. I nodded. "And the kid?" "Yeah." He let out a breath that sounded more like a prayer for strength. "You okay?" "Not even close." We stood like that for a minute, maybe more. My heart was still somewhere back inside, lodged between Claire's shattered expression and the impossible eyes of a child I might have made. That's when my phone buzzed. "Isabel, don't shut me out. Nathan, you deserve to know everything. Meet me tomorrow, 10 a.m. The little park off Bramble. Bring questions. No apology. Just instructions." She always had a way of hijacking control and making it feel like an offer. Jacob looked over my shoulder as I read the message. "You gonna go?" I didn't answer, because I already knew the answer. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room of what should have been our wedding suite, the place Claire and I booked for our first night as husband and wife. The champagne bottle we'd set aside was still chilling in a silver bucket, untouched. I opened it, drank straight from the bottle, because why not? The playlist we'd made, soft jazz, her favorites, was still queued on my phone. I didn't play it, because that music belonged to a life that might be gone. Instead, I sat in the dark, playing the last few years back in my mind like a reel gone sideways. Isabel's goodbye, the time gap, the radio silence, and Liam, a boy with my eyes, and her timing. I did the math. If he was 3.5, that lined up with the month she left. Suddenly, the story of finding herself felt more like hiding something, and I'd been too broken to notice. At 10 a.m. sharp, I parked near the swings at Bramble Park. Isabel was already there, sunglasses on, hair pulled back, Liam playing in the grass a few feet away. He laughed as he chased a dandelion puff. And for a moment, I saw my own childhood flash in that sound, that freedom. Isabel waved me over. No hug, no small talk. Thanks for coming, she said. I crossed my arms. You said I deserved to know everything. Start talking. She exhaled. Look down. Then back up, steady. You're his father. I didn't react. Didn't let the words move through me too quickly. How long have you known? Since the test, she said. I got one on my own after he was born. I didn't tell you because I wasn't ready to face what I'd done. And I thought, she paused, swallowing hard. I thought maybe you were better off not knowing. Starting over. I laughed, bitter, short. That wasn't your call. You're right. And now? Why now? Her eyes flicked to Liam. Because I saw your name again. And because I thought maybe he deserved better than a secret. No, I said. You didn't come back for him. You came back because of Claire. Because you saw what I had and you didn't. Her jaw tightened. Believe what you want. But I didn't crash your wedding for revenge. I came because Jason told me to. I froze. Jason? I repeated. She nodded. He said if anything ever happened to him, I had to tell you everything. Jason's my brother. Why would he care about this? She looked at me, and in her eyes, I saw something I hadn't seen before. Fear. I didn't just leave for space, she said. I left to get away. From something bigger. Jason was part of it. And now, he's gone. Gone. I echoed. She nodded slowly. Disappeared. No calls. No word. For 2 months. But before he vanished, he told me something. He said, if anything happens to me, tell Nathan. Bring Liam to him. Whether or not he's the father, he's the one I trust. He'll do right by the boy. He always does. My head spun. What did Jason have to do with Liam? Why had he even been in Isabel's life again? And how long had I been left out of a story with my own blood, my own past, and now maybe my own son? I looked over at Liam. He waved at me, and I did the only thing that made sense in a world that had stopped making sense. I looked over at Liam. He waved at me, and for a moment, just for a second, I thought of Theo, my cousin, Jason's shadow. He died in a crash the summer we turned 13, and Jason was never the same. He used to say, you know, not every accident is an accident. I'd roll my eyes. He'd stare off like he knew something no one else did. I never thought much of it. Until now. Liam waved again, and I did the only thing that made sense in a world that had stopped making sense. I waved back. The thing about secrets is, they don't stay still. They slither. They wait. They rot quietly under floorboards until someone steps just wrong, and the whole house groans with the weight of what's been buried. And that's exactly what this felt like. Isabel hadn't just shown up with a kid. She'd shown up with a missing person, a cryptic message, and a look in her eyes like she was scared to even say it all out loud. Jason, my brother, gone for 2 months. And now he was the ghost tugging at the edges of this already broken picture. After the park, I didn't go home. I drove. Nowhere in particular. Just far enough to think without landmarks reminding me of what was supposed to be. Isabel said Jason was involved. That he told her to bring Liam to me if anything happened. That he vanished after saying someone was watching him. That was Jason, though always chasing storms he swore he could outsmart. Slick, fast-talking, the kind of guy who could charm a locked door open with half a sentence. But this? Disappearing without a trace? That wasn't his style. Even when he ran, he left a trail. So why now? Why this? I called his number again. Still disconnected. Called the last address I had for him. A landlord who sounded half asleep and half annoyed. Yeah, I remember him. Left in a hurry. Paid the full rent through the month. Even tossed in an extra 100. Said he might have someone come pick something up. Told me not to throw it out. You still have it? I asked. Didn't touch it. Basement. Said it was for his brother. You him? Yeah. He gave me the address. I drove 2 states over that night. The box was still there. Water-stained. Taped shut. On top, black marker. 1 word. Nathan. Inside, papers. Receipts. A flash drive. An old disposable camera. Used up but undeveloped. And 1 folded piece of paper with my name on it. Just 2 words. If I don't make it. I sat on the floor right there and read. Jason's handwriting was sloppy, rushed. Like he was racing to get it out before something or someone stopped him. He wrote about Maddox. Corbin Brenner. A name I hadn't heard in years. Real estate guy. Local tycoon. The kind who dressed like he'd invented suits. Known for pushing through shady development deals, buyouts, permits, lawsuits. Rumors followed him like shadows. But Jason? He used to work for the man. I never paid it much attention back then. Jason had jobs the way most people had hobbies. Fast, fleeting, half-finished. He said Maddox was dirty. Said there were things no one was supposed to find. I didn't listen. But apparently, Jason had been looking again. And according to the note, he found something. Contracts, fake signatures, payoffs, safety violations covered up with bribes. Maddox buried 3 lawsuits before they ever hit court. And I think he knows I know. Then, one final line. If I disappear, it wasn't my choice. Tell Nathan he has to finish this. Tell him. Liam matters. That was the last thing. Liam matters. It didn't make sense. What did a shady real estate deal have to do with my brother? What did any of this have to do with Liam? Unless Jason wasn't just running from danger. Maybe he was trying to protect something. Or someone. And suddenly the pieces started shifting. Isabel left without a word. Liam was born in secret. Jason reappeared in her life, after years of silence, and then vanished again. And now I was sitting in a basement with a box full of breadcrumbs and no map. Back home, I called Claire. I didn't expect her to answer. But she did. Her voice was tired, guarded. Is it true? She asked. I didn't pretend. Yeah. Silence. Then, is he yours? Test says yes. Another pause. Do you love him? I hadn't expected that question, but it landed with more weight than anything else had all week. I don't know him yet, I said. But he's mine. That matters. She let out a shaky breath. I'm not ready to talk, but I needed to hear that. And just like that, she hung up. No anger, just boundaries. I respected that. I drove to Isabel's place again. This time, I didn't knock. She was already on the porch, like she'd been waiting. I read Jason's note, I said, and I want to see the rest. She didn't ask how I got it. Just opened the door and led me to her laptop. The folder on her desktop was called August, password protected. I entered the code from Jason's note, 081999, the day our cousin died. It opened. Dozens of files. Invoices. Wire transfers. Scan contracts. Voice recordings. One photo stopped me cold. A construction site. Half-built. Collapsed. Debris everywhere. A tiny corner of a newspaper article clipped to the edge. 2 injured. 1 missing in early morning collapse. Safety concerns flagged weeks earlier. Jason had marked it with red text. Maddox project. Deliberately ignored warnings. Covered up. The missing worker? Never found. Liam was born weeks later. I turned to Isabel. What did Jason know about Liam? She didn't answer right away. Then she said, he told me he wasn't sure if you were the father. What? She looked down. I was with you, and then I left. A week later, Jason found me in Atlanta. I was a mess. He helped. Nothing happened right away, but later, it got blurred. I don't even know the exact moment. My stomach dropped. You're saying Jason might be? She looked up, eyes wide. I don't know. I swear I don't. But he said if there was a chance he was the father, he didn't want to risk screwing it up. He said Liam deserved stability, that you'd give him a better life, that you were the safe one. The room spun. And then she said one last thing. He told me he was going to fix everything, that if Maddox ever found out Liam existed, it might put all of us in danger. So now, I'm the legal father of a boy who might be mine, or my brother's. My wedding is ashes. My ex is back in my life. And my brother? He's gone, leaving behind only clues, ghosts, and a message. Protect the boy. Whatever that means. I'm about to find out. The day after I opened Jason's folder, I started seeing him everywhere. Not literally, he wasn't suddenly stepping out of alleyways or calling from blocked numbers. But I felt him. In street corners he used to lean against. In jokes half formed in my head. In the silence before I fell asleep. When my brain played reruns of memories I hadn't touched in years. He was haunting me. Not as a spirit. As a question. What was he trying to protect? And why was Liam at the center of it? I sat with Isabel the next morning, both of us hollow-eyed and half awake. Liam was in the living room, building a spaceship out of blocks. He laughed when one side fell off. That sound, light, free, completely untouched by the storm circling him, made my throat tighten. He doesn't know anything, does he? I asked. Isabel shook her head. He just thinks he's visiting a new friend. I nodded slowly. What if Jason's not coming back? I asked. She didn't look shocked, just sad. I don't know how to explain that to him. We sat in silence. Then I asked the question I hadn't dared ask before. If Jason thought Liam might be his, why would he tell you to give him to me? Isabel looked at me, voice barely a whisper. Because he didn't trust himself to raise a kid. But he trusted you. Those words landed like a punch. He trusted me. The brother he hadn't spoken to in 3 years. The one he'd walked out on after our last fight. He'd still believed I could do something he couldn't. Take care of the boy. I couldn't sit still after that. So I did what Jason would have done. I started digging. I pulled up property records on every Maddox development from the last 5 years. Construction sites, lawsuits, news clippings that were barely more than PR spin. And then I found it. A name buried deep in a zoning appeal document. Crescent Park Lofts. That was the site from the photo Jason marked in red. The one with the collapse. I called the city inspector listed on the file. Fake number. Then I called an old friend of Jason's, a guy named Micah, who used to work IT for the city. We hadn't spoken since college, but he picked up. Micah, I said, I need a favor. He sighed. This Jason related? Yeah. He didn't ask more. Just said he'd look into it. 20 minutes later, he sent me a text with 2 words. Be careful. Claire reached out that night. Not a call. Just a photo. Liam, sitting on the front steps of Isabel's rental, holding a juice box and squinting into the sun. He looks like you, she typed. That's all she said. But it was enough to break me wide open. I didn't know what we were anymore, Claire and I. If we had a future. If the wedding could ever be uncanceled. But that moment, she was still with me in some quiet, undeniable way. She hadn't turned away completely. Then, at 2:14 a.m., my phone lit up again. This time, it wasn't Claire. It was a blocked number. No caller ID. I let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, the message came through. I played it, crackling static. Then a voice. Muffled. Distorted. Nathan, you need to stop. Walk away. Jason made a mistake. You don't have to. I froze. Played it again. Same voice. Calm. Cold. Threat layered in quiet. Isabel heard it too. She looked pale, then grabbed Liam and locked the door. I didn't say anything. Just sat down at the kitchen table, pulled Jason's flash drive from my pocket, and opened a blank document. Because if someone was willing to scare me off, that meant I was close. Close to whatever Jason died trying to finish. And I wasn't walking away. Not now. You ever sit in a room that feels like it's waiting for bad news? That's what Isabel's kitchen turned into after that voicemail. The kind of space where every creak sounded like a threat. Every shadow felt like it might blink. She paced. Liam slept on the couch, unaware. I sat at the table, laptop open, Jason's flash drive plugged in, and a spiral notebook at my side, because some things you need to write down in ink, like you're trying to make the truth permanent. The message had been clear. Walk away. But they made one mistake. They threatened me after I saw Liam's face. Because that boy? He wasn't just a maybe anymore. He wasn't just a genetic question mark. He was mine, by blood, by bond, or by the simple truth that someone had to stand between him and whatever storm Jason left behind. And if no one else would, then I would. I spent the next 2 days chasing threads. Micah sent over a decrypted file from the city's database, internal memos between Maddox's development firm and 2 city officials. One line stuck out like a blade. Ignore inspection delays. We'll have it cleared by the time the press catches wind. For Corbin, expedite. Then another. Tell JH to stop poking around, or we'll make it his problem. JH. Jason Harper. My brother. My hands were shaking when I closed the file. He wasn't being paranoid. He was being hunted. And now? Now they turned their sights on me. Claire called that evening. I hadn't expected it. She didn't ask how I was. She asked if Liam was safe. I told her yes. I told her I wasn't. She was quiet for a while. Then she said, do you remember that house Jason and I rented after college? The one on Hawthorne? Yeah. There was a box in the attic. Photos. A notebook. Jason said it wasn't his, but he kept it anyway. Said it made him remember something. I didn't ask what. She paused. I think it might still be there. I drove through the night. The house was empty now, for sale, lawn overgrown, windows dusty with time. But I knew the back gate was always loose. Inside, the attic was exactly as I remembered it. Cramped, full of insulation, and whispering with air that hadn't moved in years. The box was still there. Old leather. Metal clasp rusted. Inside, Polaroids. Newspaper clippings. A map. And a small spiral notebook with Jason's name written on the inside cover, but not his handwriting. The name Theo was everywhere. Theo, our cousin, died in a car crash in '99. That was the night Jason changed. The night he stopped being my reckless best friend and started becoming someone I didn't recognize. Inside the notebook, a date circled 3 times, August 19th, 1999. And beneath it, one line. They made it look like an accident, but it wasn't. I sat down hard, dust kicking up around me like ghosts. Jason had been chasing Maddox long before Liam, long before the real estate deals. This went way back, to family, to blood, to the kind of secrets that twist the roots of everything you thought you knew. Back at Isabel's, I laid out everything on the table. She sat down across from me. looking at the photos, the notebook, the faded map marked with construction sites and red XS. She didn't speak for a long time. Then she said, "He never told me about any of this. Because he didn't want you caught in it." She nodded slowly, then looked up. "What do we do now?" I looked at Liam, asleep again on the couch, little chest rising and falling like nothing in his world had changed. "We finished what Jason started," I said. She looked scared. I didn't blame her. But she didn't argue. Because we both knew, once you know the truth, you either protect it or bury it. And Jason had already done his part. Now it was my turn. They never found Jason's body, only his car. Abandoned near a drainage canal, keys still in the ignition, driver's side door wide open. No note, no blood. Just the echo of a man who knew he was running out of time. The cops called it voluntary disappearance. I called it what it was, erasure. Someone had made sure his story ended before it could be told. But Jason wasn't stupid. He knew who he was up against. Knew Maddox didn't threaten, he erased. That's why he left the map, the files, the kid, and me. His last bet. I brought everything to a reporter. Not a loud one. Not the kind with breaking news banners and viral tweets. I chose her because Jason once told me, if I ever vanish, give it to the woman who covered Theo's crash. She's the only one who didn't lie. Her name was Dana Cruz. And when I walked into her office with Jason's files, she didn't ask how I got them. She just locked the door and said, "Start talking." Turns out, she'd already been following whispers about Maddox for months, small leads, buried sources, nothing concrete. What I brought her wasn't the beginning. It was the missing piece. The story broke 3 days later. Front page. Full spread. Billionaire developer tied to safety cover UPS and disappearances, whistleblower missing. Maddox issued a denial before the ink was dry. But it didn't matter. Investigations opened. Old lawsuits resurfaced. The missing worker's family called in lawyers. 2 city officials resigned before the week was out. And me? I waited. Not because I wanted revenge. Because I knew Jason's name was finally somewhere it couldn't be erased. Not anymore. The night after the story ran, I drove out to the old lake where we used to camp as kids. Jason's favorite spot. The place where we buried time capsules and told ghost stories like we didn't know the real ones were growing all around us. I brought Liam. Not because he understood. Because I needed him there. I sat on the dock with him in my lap. His small hands wrapped around my thumb like it was the only anchor he had. I told him about his uncle. About the trouble he found. And the truth he chased. And how sometimes, the bravest thing a man can do is leave behind a map and hope someone else finds the courage to follow it. Claire met us there. I didn't ask her to. But years ago, I told her this was the place Jason and I came to feel normal again, before the world got complicated. She remembered, and she showed up. In jeans and a hoodie, arms crossed tight, face unreadable. She didn't come sit beside me right away. Just stood there, watching me, Liam, the water. Then finally, she stepped closer. Not to me. To him. "I read the article," she said. "All of it." I nodded. She looked at Liam. "He looks like you. He might be Jason's. But you're here." "I am." She didn't touch him. But Liam looked up, curious. She gave a small nod. Not a smile. Just recognition. A beginning. And that was enough. Weeks passed. The world moved on. But we didn't. Not exactly. Isabel decided to move not far, just enough to start fresh. She left Liam with me for the summer, said she needed space to figure out who she was outside of all this. I understood. And I didn't fight it. Because for the first time, I wasn't trying to hold on to what was. I was building what came next. One Lego at a time. One bedtime story at a time. One honest conversation with Claire at a time. No promises, just presence. I never got to say goodbye to Jason. Not really. But I said it the way he would have wanted. By finishing what he started. By protecting what he couldn't. By choosing truth, even when it hurt. And when Liam looked up at me one night, eyes sleepy, voice soft, and said, "Dad," I didn't correct him. I just pulled him close and whispered, "I got you, buddy. I always will." Because love, real love, isn't always about how it starts. It's about who stays when the storm hits. It's about showing up when the past knocks at your door, toddler in tow. It's about holding on to the people who still choose you, even after the music stops. And as I tucked Liam in, turned off the light, and stood in the doorway watching his little chest rise and fall, I knew this wasn't the life I planned, but it was the one I was made for. And it was mine, fully, finally, home.